Hello, this is Unzone with GameLeap, and in today's video, we're going to be going over the 5 highest and 5 lowest win rate heroes in Overwatch. Overwatch is a very diverse cast filled with a whole bunch of heroes, but certain heroes are going to fare better than others in gold. Whether or not we are not skilled enough to play some of the more demanding heroes, or if certain picks are just really good at cheesing out rating, there is a huge variance in win rates in these tiers. So in today's video, we'll be listing the 5 highest and 5 lowest win rate heroes in gold, starting off with best to worst. But before that, if you really want a deep dive into all things Overwatch, GameLeap.com offers some of the finest guides for Overwatch available. If you want to expand your knowledge and unlock the ability to climb rank after rank, click on the link in the description below to unlock access to guides made by professionals such as me. First and foremost, our best overall win rate hero in all of Overwatch in gold is going to be Brigitte. She has a very easy to execute game plan, insane hard counters, and runs people over when left alone. When Brig is allowed to swing, Brig does an incredibly good job of keeping everybody topped off and works as sort of a pseudo DPS. This hero is an absolute fright train when it comes to taking over games. Brig isn't too great against super long range compositions, but most people in gold don't actually know how to use range as a proper buffer, and they'll end up fist fighting you. This is where Brig excels. Brig wants these up close fist fights, she wants to be up and in your face, and she definitely wants to be pummeling you with her flail. When you leave Brig alone, Brig gets a lot of value compared to most other heroes. But she's also relegated into being more of a counter pick, so this does also explain the super high win rate. Brig is a solid % or 2 above most other heroes, and this is exactly why. Now next up on our list is going to be Symmetra. Symmetra at her core is very simple, super effective. This hero requires not too much thought because the enemy team does the thinking for us. When we get down to it, Microwave is basically going to be a guaranteed death if people aren't able to consistently land their shots. You can't really miss a turret, and the turret is also really good when people are allergic to actually killing them. A lot of people in gold do not have the situational awareness to actually discover where the Symmetra turrets are and then kill them. Instead, more than likely what they'll end up doing is freak out because they're microwaving them and the turrets are on them at the same time, and then leave the turrets alone. When in reality, they could kill the turrets real quick and then swap to you if they have good accuracy. But because people in gold don't really have the greatest of accuracy, this leads to a situation where we're able to double DPS with both our turrets and our microwave. This is very effective and a simple way to shut down entire areas of the map. Symmetra is incredibly good on basically every single type of objective. She is incredibly high value thanks to Teleporter, and when we play Symmetra as a solo DPS, we are very independent thanks to the increased shielding that we do get. This hero is overall super solid, really easy to execute, and there is no hard hit scan requirement on her. Next up on our list is Torbjorn. Torb is a very interesting hero because he's basically Symmetra, but with a hit scan requirement. In my opinion, this character is actually quite significantly stronger than Symmetra when played effectively, but we do have to hit our shots. The shotgun on Torb is insanely strong. Her is good when people lack situational awareness, just like Sim, but it has a longer effective range, and if we're able to actually babysit our turret, it will scratch our back as much as we scratch its. Torb is overall just a really solid pick for basically every situation. Our primary fire, our left click, is going to be incredibly effective at just taking people's heads off, and if we ever get into a brawl against a tank, we're going to be well off thanks to the shotgun. Basically every hero in the game, if they eat one singular shotgun headshot from Torb, is going to be left reeling if not outright dead. There is not very many heroes in the game that can actually contest Torb, and this leads us to a lot of situations where we can solo take or defend points very easily. When played effectively, Torb is also significantly tankier than all other damage characters, so this means that we can actually get in, stay in, and continue keeping tempo, which is incredibly important in these lower ranks. And this is why our next pick is also just as strong. Junker Queen is an absolute menace in gold, and the reason for this is because of people's poor aim. If you don't outright burst Junker Queen with good shots, she simply just runs your team over by drain tanking. Junker Queen has insanely effective buttons in a straight fight, such as Carnage. The shout is incredibly good. Her ulti has an incredibly low cost, which allows for Junker Queen to be a very high value pick. Junker Queen will always be effective in any uncoordinated fight simply due to how her kit works at the baseline. Inherently, this hero is incredibly good at vamping off of enemies. If we're able to get in melee range, we're even more effective. Especially when we have healers that synergize with us well, there's effectively no stopping this pick. Junker Queen is an absolute menace in the close quarters combat. She is one of the most high value tanks that we could get on due to her super high damage and her effective ultimate. And on top of that, she is just very good at punishing mistakes, which makes her one of the highest win rate heroes in all of Overwatch. Our next pick is actually kind of surprising, but it's for good reason. Zenyatta is the last on our highest win rate list. The reason for this is because Zen counters others heavily when played well. Both Harmony and Discord orbs are very effective by themselves, but because these are mostly fire and forget, we can simply put our Harmony orb on an ally and then place a discord on whoever is the most threatening, and by design will be hitting and healing the most efficient targets in most fights. The reason for this is that generally our DPS is going to have a similar sightline to us on Zenyatta. We're going to be at basically the same position as our DPSs, so it's very easy to focus people out. In gold, it's very difficult to actually have a priority target, but Discord Orb gives everybody a big marker, lets you know exactly what we need to be hitting. If we're calming effectively, then people know that we want to be burning down this target, and it gives people an objective. This is why Zen, while not being the most effective pick by himself, has such a high win rate. He creates mini objectives for our team, which then allows us to dogpile onto them while we don't make the same mistake of like heal botting the same person over and over again, because we can simply harmony our Tracer, we can harmony our Genji, so on and so forth, and then still have effective healing on them. Now that we talked about the 5 highest win rate heroes, let's go ahead and talk about the 5 lowest win rate heroes, starting from the highest low win rate to the lowest absolute win rate. First and foremost on our list is Cassidy, and the reason for this is quite simple. Cassidy needs to click heads. He has a very steep aim requirement, his only guaranteed damage is sticky, and it's also not that significant if we're just going for raw damage. Cassidy overall is something that has a very demanding skill set requirement, and if we're unable to meet this, it's shown very clearly by the overall win rate on this hero. His mobility is kind of limited, it's not really super long range, it doesn't really do good for peeling us, we don't have a hard CC, all we have is sticky, you get the idea. Cassidy is usually best played as an anti-flanker, and people in gold don't really flank super heavily, and you're not really going to be off the side taking 1v1s. There's going to be more 1v1 ball fighting and brawling in general. So if we're playing Cassidy, another DPS is usually going to be more effective, which is why he has such a low win rate. Our next pick on this list is going to be Widowmaker for pretty obvious reasons. She struggles very heavily against dive, which are some of the easiest to execute picks, especially in this ELO. Widowmaker is also incredibly tied to headshots. They literally make or break this character, and her long range safety is gone after the nerfs. So we can't really sit super far back as Widow. If we sit a little bit closer, then those picks like Genji are going to get on us, and on top of that, we really have to have an exceptional headshot accuracy to make this hero even work at the baseline. This, of course, leads to Widow being one of the most unforgiving picks in the game. She has a very high demand to play, but a medium to low reward actually, simply due to the amount of effort that we have to put into this character. Other DPSs just do it better. Widow is susceptible to some of the lamest stuff that you have to experience in Overwatch, and this definitely reflects in her overall win rate. Now, surprisingly, Lifeweaver is not our lowest win rate hero. He's actually 2 above the rest. And the reason for this is that Lifeweaver's kit is difficult for even the best players to pull off, but being a support is inherently advantageous. And the reason for this is because we're simply going to be healing our team no matter what, right? So even though Lifeweaver is hard to use and even harder to master, and he has a clit that's clunky and unforgiving, it's still a support, so it's still going to be easier to execute than most of the other picks on this list. This allows us to be in kind of a weird limbo on this character where he's not quite the worst character, but he's obviously the worst support. So it puts us in kind of a lose-lose situation where we'd have another support that would be more effective, but Lifeweaver's unique kit also makes him really enjoyable. So you kind of have to sacrifice your enjoyment for your effectiveness in order to make this hero even work, which is something that we don't really want to do. Basically, if you are a good Lifeweaver and you know how to make use out of his kit, he is decent for climbing on, but most people that play Lifeweaver either A, don't fully grasp his kit, B, don't grasp fundamentals of Overwatch, or C, are susceptible to his lower numbers and clunky kit, which results in his overall low win rate. I personally don't think that this hero is all that bad, but the amount of time investment is a definite negative to even get this guy rolling. Next up on our list, we have Roadhog. This is actually not super surprising. Roadhog has a huge hitbox. He's very easy to blow up. If you miss your hook, your tempo is dead in the water. Roadhog basically doesn't excel at anything. Junker Queen is a better meatball. Reinhardt is way better at getting your team in. If we want to go purely for picks, even Ramatra can create picks a lot easier than Roadhog can. Roadhog is just kind of a pick that's very susceptible to counters. Orisa exists, which is just insanely hard for Roadhog to get through. We can't really get in and deal damage effectively because we are susceptible to just getting completely and utterly melted, especially if the enemy team is something like a Zenyatta or a Reaper. We of course are just going to get deleted off the face of the map. You get the idea. Roadhog is overall just a very low value pick. He doesn't really excel at anything. He's not even the best at like creating space or making picks. His damage is overall really lackluster. His self-healing is mediocre at best. And then on top of that, there's not really a support that Roadhog synergizes super well with. His ultimate is easily countered. There's just a whole bunch of negatives to this hero overall in the tank slot. So Roadhog unfortunately is one of the lowest win rate heroes in all of gold statistically. It doesn't mean that you can't win on him. It just means that you have to play the game differently and approach the game from a different perspective, which is kind of a hindrance to other people. You can definitely definitely make Roadhog work, but the amount of effort that you're going to be putting in on this hero is simply going to be a little bit too much, similar to Lifeweaver or Widowmaker or Cassidy. All these heroes have a similar pitfall. And finally, the lowest win rate hero in all of Gold Overwatch is Sombra. Now, this is not super surprising. Sombra has a lot of difficulty to her when it comes to using your hack effectively. You need to know which health packs to actually hack to get the most effectiveness from them, and you have to be very confident in using your translocator. All of this comes from a similar skill set as Tracer, but much more difficult to execute. Sombra is a solo hero. It's something that we want to be flanking with. We want to be constantly annoying people by ourselves and not relying on our teammates, and people in Gold struggle to actually grasp this concept. This is overall a very negative thing for most Sombra players out there, but of course, when you look at high elo Overwatch, Sombra is one of the most contested and most effective picks when played properly. This hero is absolutely bonkers if we know the maps, if we have decent aim, if we're able to translocate properly, and especially when we have high value hacks and good EMPs. Sombra is by no means a bad character. She's just so different from the rest of the DPS cast and has such an alternative playstyle. A lot of people can't really grasp this fully, which leads to her having a very low win rate. In reality, this is probably one of, if not the most frustrating DPS to play against when a good player is piloting it, but for Gold Overwatch, you need a very exceptional standout player to actually make this pick work. Anyways, this was Unsung with GameLeap. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. I'll see you guys in the next video. And also make sure to check out GameLeap.com for the best, highest quality professional Overwatch guides from coaches such as myself.